There are a lot of reasons for tension in relationships. And some of those reasons are lack of communication, miscommunication, misaligned expectations, unrealistic expectations, priorities that are out of order, and just not understanding the purpose of that relationship. You name it. There can be a plethora of reasons why tension exists within any relationship. And this goes from friendships, professional relationships, social relationships, romantic, you name it. In every context, in any context where human beings are involved, and there are tensions that arise at some point. Most often it's because at some point there's being some form of out of syncness. This could happen at the beginning, in the course of the relationship, just somewhere at some point. And that's because when human beings are involved in anything, the success of that partnership, the success of that cooperation between human beings is hugely dependent on the individuals involved. And one of those reasons for tension in relationships is the uniqueness of the people involved. And this uniqueness implies, individuals understanding who they are, what they carry, and what their purpose is. When people do not understand their uniqueness, when people do not understand what makes them stand out as individuals, and they embark into a partnership where there are expectations, tension is bound to occur. And our uniqueness is not going to be the same across the board. For example, the expectations as siblings are not the same as a spouse. The expectations incumbent upon us as the CEO of a company are not the same as just an employee. In our uniqueness is called to manifest itself differently based on the environment in which we are. And unless we, one, understand the specific details of our uniqueness, and two, embrace those and fully embody those in every role where society expects us to operate in, there is bound to be frustrations, not just for the people involved in the relationship or cooperation that we are in, but even for us. Because inherently, unless we are operating in the realm and in the functions for which we are on earth, there will always be internal, intrinsic frustration. When that giant within you and I lays suffocated inside of us, when that giant, that greatness within us isn't expressed how it should be and when it should be expressed, we're going to be frustrated. And without even noticing it sometimes, that frustration is going to be expressed to the other people who share common spaces with us. In this episode, we want to talk about uniqueness everywhere. Our uniqueness is not a call to act everywhere. No, it's a call to be who we are supposed to be in the context within which we find ourselves. Sometimes that's going to require us to retreat and observe. Might be a skill of ours to observe, to analyze, and to identify what needs to be acted upon or improved upon, or sometimes stepping up and standing up is what's going to be required of us. But in this whole dynamics of change, understanding our uniqueness is critical. It's critical. Because in reality, when we don't understand our uniqueness, we're not going to know how to position ourselves in seasons of change. Because every season of change is going to require a different version of our potential to be deployed. Not understanding, for example, that you are a lion, or you're inherently given the traits of a lion, would want you to operate within the waters as like you think you're an aquatic animal and you'd want to swim. That's a recipe for disaster. Because you're not, if you're born as a lion, you're not cold-blooded, right? You don't have the disposition to operate at full potential underwater. Nobody needs to teach a fish how to swim. Those abilities are inherently embedded within its modus operandi. Nobody needs to teach an eagle where to fly in the air. Soon as the eagle has hit maturity, they know how to fly. Nobody needs to teach an ant how to make reserves for the future, how to stay busy, how to be wise. Nobody needs to teach a spider how to build a spider web. If you're called upon to operate as a spider within your realm of excellence, but you're operating as a butterfly, you're out of sync. You're not operating within your uniqueness. Because based on your wiring by God, based on how God has wired you, that also would imply how you adapt in changing seasons. So could it be that the tension that you're currently living in your couple, in your marriage, is simply due to the fact that you haven't accepted, recognized your uniqueness as an individual? Or maybe you've understood yours, but you have a hard time making room for the other person or persons within that relationship to express theirs. Because at the end of the day, you might even recognize your uniqueness. You might recognize that you swim better in water. You might recognize that you're an eagle, but you become self-centered and selfish to the point where you're not making room for other people to also express their own uniqueness in the context where you are right now. Could it be that you just need to shift your mindset, or maybe retreat and take some time with God to understand what it is that makes you unique? Because I guarantee you, regardless of the context in which you find yourself, you're always going to be called to express some form of uniqueness, some form of those traits that make you who you are. And growing in that understanding is the recipe for success personally, but also it would improve the dynamics of change when we share common space with people at our jobs, in our families, in our friendships, or just in any relationship. That would even inform and give us more maturity in the way we see life. I particularly like how the Bible gives us an analogy that goes in this direction. When we look at scriptures, it says, and this is in Ephesians 4, starting from verse 11, it says, "Now these are the gifts Christ gave to the church: the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, and the pastors and teachers." Continues to say, their responsibility is to equip God's people to do his work and build up the church, the body of Christ. This will continue until we all come to such unity in our faith and knowledge of God's Son that he will be mature, that we will be mature in the Lord, measuring up to the full and complete standard of Christ. Again, Ephesians 4 verse 11 to 13. So clearly we see that God has given gifts, right? Gifts to the church, the body of Christ. Every person here, there are people who are uniquely called to be apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers. And their responsibility is to build up the church, the body. In our uniqueness, the goal is for us to build up the bigger whole, the bigger puzzle, the grand scheme of things. But you see, it takes that we recognize individually by the Spirit of God. That's why I said, if you understand the focus of today's episode, maybe this is a time for you to retreat, to go into your secret closet and really ask God to reveal to you what is your uniqueness in the grand scheme of his agenda. And when you understand this uniqueness, you're not going to be scared to operate in whatever sphere God has you in now and God would have you in the future. Not only you won't be scared to operate, but you would understand the rules of engagement. Because even the rigor and the training and the expectations would adapt to your uniqueness. You know, as a track and field athlete, the way you train would be quite different from the way another athlete, say, a soccer player trains, or a wrestling athlete. There would be a common way of training, but there would always be uniqueness even in the type of training we do. And overall, our relationships will be improved, because the goal of this uniqueness is maturity and to bring us to full, complete standard of Jesus Christ. So, dear leader, take some time, ponder upon this, and we will see you in the next episode. Thank you. We love you. God bless.